Welcome to Swiss Army Sages.
Morning, everyone. How's it going? Hope everyone's doing well.
Today we're going to be talking about kind of a complicated aspect of the human psyche, which is justice.
Justice and vengeance.
Justice and vengeance.
And the line, I guess the line that crosses, or are they really that different?
Right. The reason I wanted to talk about this is because it seems like we're getting into a social climate, an environment where there's a lot of people that have this idea of things going on in the world,
right,
that are not good. Some would say even downright diabolical, evil.
Yeah, I think it's important to note it's an idea. I mean, it might be factual, but from a standpoint of a viewer or an observer, if I hear about what's going on in Ukraine, to me it's an idea. I have to trust or believe. I have to trust or believe what I'm hearing, and that doesn't mean it's true or not true. I believe that a lot of the things that are happening in Ukraine that I think are atrocious are true, but that's subjective for me, not for the people that it's happening to.
Yeah, and this is more geared towards having world issues in our life that vie for our attention, that kind of reach out to pull on your heart for justice.
Yeah, it's more than it's vying for your attention. It's vying for your allegiance.
Right. And we'll get into that aspect of it, because here, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to offer healthy perspectives that can help us have a good, fulfilling life, enjoy life, really be the most that we can be with the crap that's going on.
Crazy thing that we're talking about right now, because what you're saying just reminded me of a clip that George Norrie I listen to Coast to Coast on the way home from work. Sometimes I might have mentioned that before, but he played a clip that's saying exactly what you're saying from the movie Network. We'll have to play the clip. We'll have to post the clip. It's exactly what's going on today.
So a lot of people might be going through their social media and stories and maybe hearing things from their friends at work and kind of feeling a heaviness and maybe a little bit of an anger, and not understanding exactly what that is, why it's happening, and how to be able to just go throughout your day enjoying your day. Of course, you're not going to enjoy your day all the time.
No.
There's always going to be conflict as long as we're here. We can do a lot to mitigate that, but
right.
Who goes through their life without conflict?
When there is a way that it's presented, when a person talks about positivity and just enjoying everything, I think when I was in my early 20s, I came up with this mental attitude that I have not been able to accomplish, this attitude. And I even back then I was like, I thought this attitude is something that is going to be very hard to achieve, and I haven't been able to achieve it, and I've kind of given up on trying, or maybe put it off, because I still have it in the back of my head, and that is to relish everything, even pain, everything. I didn't realize that at the time. That's kind of a Hindu philosophy, but to relish everything. And some of the things I've been through, I've failed and not to say I can go back in time and say, okay, it was worth it in the moment. At least on a separate level, say I'm relishing this. So the reason I bring this up is because anyone who's all about positivity and like, oh my, like I just have a great life, this and that. There's some people who say it authentically and they mean it because at the time, and I've been there, I feel like everything is just as good as it can be. It can't get better, and I'm completely satisfied. And then there's a person who knows that that's a real thing, so they know they can fake it. And that's the person that says, yeah, it's just about positivity. Everything's positive, no negativity. That's not in my world. Anyone who says it with that attitude, totally faker. Totally
But how do you
faker.
know that they're a faker if you're not in their head?
You can tell.
Like, how, is it really not possible to just always be positive? I mean, there's a lot of books and a lot of self-help books and speakers that speak about always having a positive attitude, always smiling.
Yeah.
And if you do that, then you're going to attract the positive side of life to you.
Okay.
And then it's going to be this circle of always being positive.
Yeah, so I think so. What I'm saying, talking about, is the people that have that push, the always positive, and claim have a little bit of the yes man syndrome, where the person who's actually doing, if you've seen the movie, the person who's actually doing the motivational stuff isn't actually doing it, and then one guy comes along and actually does it, and he's like, whoa, hey, whoa. You're not actually supposed to do it, man. and because I've met people who were in romantic partnership relationships with those kinds of motivational speakers, and they're like, oh yeah, all the people that like listen to my my partner, they don't know how he really is.
Wow.
You know, because I just one, actually. I've only had one person in my life that whose romantic partner was actually a very popular motivational speaker, and she was like, he doesn't follow the stuff that he preaches, you know.
Yeah.
And so
how this is going to tie into justice is it's like if you were to say, well, I guess here's a good example. Let's say that you took one of those motivational speakers,
mm-hmm.
and you're like, hey, yeah, did you hear about the massacre that happened in your town where they went into the daycare and shot all the children? You got to watch him close, because if he's like, hey, well, there's a positive side to everything, less carbon footprint,
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
you can't spin everything positive. So you have to to stay positive, you'd have to either ignore it, which is not good ever, to just ignore something that's going on. Or pretend that it doesn't exist because it's still in your subconscious. Or that's when they're going to be acting unless they're actually extremely evil, and that doesn't bother them at all, that children are dying in their own neighborhood, especially.
Yeah. So I think I really went off on a tangent to talk about something else, but that's okay. One thing I wanted to mention about what you were talking about earlier, what was it? When you said something's affecting you and you don't really know why. There's a difference when something that you feel is injustice happening and you're actively upset about it, and then when you're not thinking about it but you're still affected by it. And then where you're saying you don't know why.
Yeah,
you don't know why.
I think that's part of the problem. And before we get into that, I want to take it all the way back and talk about really how big we might not realize this idea of justice that we have as humans. And I was thinking about little children, because when you have kids, you kind of see them over time inherit their human characteristics from infancy. And right around the age of 2, they start experiencing injustice without being able to articulate it abstractly, right?
Right. Verbalize
So
it.
what will happen, and this just happened the other day, my granddaughters were over, and they're twins. They're almost 2, I think, 1.5. And one of them had a toy, and the other one walked up and took it away. And there was a little bit of a thought process going on, trying to understand what's happening.
That's important. There's a there's a thought process. It's evaluating the reality of the situation.
And the why of the situation. And then she just started screaming. So she's already reacting to a wrong against her naturally.
Yes.
Because she doesn't have the capability or intelligence yet for abstract concepts. So the reason that I wanted to talk about this is because it is such an intrinsic part of humanity. Excuse me. Man, I need to grab some water. 1 second. Boom, water. Yeah, so the reason why I want to talk about this is because I don't think that most people fully understand how intrinsic a part it is of us as humans, and you can see it with the example that I just gave. It starts at a very, very, very young age, and it only grows.
Yeah. Okay. So tying into people that have this this always positive attitude, and how I don't believe that pushing that idea is necessarily healthy or realistic, is because that's in our nature. It is in our nature. And anyone who has this attitude, I can mentally overcome my nature. Okay, maybe there's a possibility that you can have a handle on it. I don't know that that's...
I believe you can be a master of it.
Yeah, a master of it, right.
Now,
but
we aren't, or I'm not, but I believe that with a lifetime of discipline, you can learn to master your animalistic, natural
right,
tendencies.
Okay. Right, but by mastering something doesn't mean you excise it. It doesn't mean you, I've destroyed it. It doesn't exist in me because I've mastered it. That's not mastery. You know, anyone who thinks that isn't, I don't know, I feel like it's not correct. I feel like it's not a correct idea that to have mastery over something means that you have extinguished it completely from your life.
Yeah, and you know, to me it's a extremely necessary characteristic and a very necessary emotion and feeling, because it allows the scales of life to balance themselves. So imagine if whenever someone wronged you, you didn't have that natural response. Could you even survive? Could humanity have even survived without, scrounging for food? You get your food, and then the other guy takes it,
and you don't do anything about it.
And you don't do anything. You don't even feel anything about it.
Yeah. Oh.
Would we even be here without a sense of justice?
Right, because it motivates you to correct the deficit. It's a deficit. It's a psychological or spiritual or non-physical deficit. Now, in a lot of cases, it's absolutely physical, monetarily. But even things, even when it comes to breaking someone down or condescending someone or demoralizing someone, there is a non-physical deficit happening, and it needs to be corrected. Or the damage remains. You remain at a deficit.
So, and that's why we have laws, right? We have laws to prevent things that cause that void. So
that's something interesting also, because I know in the 90s there was a big push, the idea that humans are naturally good in a society that makes us bad. But if society developed after humanity, why was it necessary to create laws to prevent the bad things that we were doing to each other, the injustices? Tribal, like, well, I guess a tribal community is a society, but is a very rudimentary and underdeveloped society compared to, like, a big city or a country. And in those environments, laws were created because naturally people are taking what they can to survive. Doesn't matter if someone else has it, I'll take it from them. I'll survive. They can deal with it. Sometimes you kill the person. I mean, in those days, so that they can't seek justice.
Yeah, and if you think about it, let's say that you decide to go live off grid by yourself in a cabin in the woods in desolation wilderness. You're done with everything. You're done with society. You're done with your wife. You're done with your kids. You're just bye.
Yeah.
Right? You're checking out.
Yeah,
right?
Fending for yourself on good
you're
old Mother Nature.
You're just a single guy and you just want to, don't have any kids, no wife. You just want to go be of nature. Now, you're not going to be experiencing justice like we experience it here when you don't find a rabbit for that day. You're not going to be like, how could nature do this to me? How could nature not provide me a rabbit?
Mm.
The only justice that you're going to experience at all is the punishment or the result or effect that you experience from not growing and not adapting to the laws of nature. So you're going to be given justice. You didn't do what you needed to do. You didn't follow the law that you needed to follow in order to find the rabbit.
And eat that day, yeah.
And your punishment is your stomach hurting and growling.
And your physical condition deteriorating instead of being maintained. There's a deficit.
There's a deficit, and that's going to cause you to either move back to the city or grow.
Yeah, adapt
and
abide by the laws
and learn how to abide by the laws. So this sense of justice is intrinsic to nature, but it takes on a different flavor once it's not you by yourself in the woods. It's you and your best friend. Now,
just that right there, yeah.
Now there's an interaction between humans where it's like a fertile soil for that sense of justice to sprout whatever it's going to sprout in your guys' interactions with each other. And that's what we experience starting at a very young age, first with our siblings and our parents. And then when we go to school, our schoolmates and classmates. And as we grow, more and more things are done wrong against us. And that sense of justice is strengthened within us to where sometimes we'll call someone out before they can do something. Because we've learned so much about human behavior and people doing wrong that when you start to see something that might hurt you, something that's going to tug on that sense of justice, you'll cut it short before it even happens.
Yeah, and it evolves into so much more, because a person who does that starts to get good at seeing that they can actually take advantage of it and almost use that as like a gaslighting kind of way. As soon as someone's doing something that, of all the choices the person can make, which is probably millions, through every moment, there's millions of different ways that you can do things. And what I mean by that is the way I'm moving my hands right now. There's an infinitesimal variety of ways I could be moving my hands. That's what I'm talking about. And so when someone starts to see that, they can preemptively say, oh, you were going to cause me a problem, which might get the other person to be apologetic and compensating. you
Yeah,
know?
it could be used.
So yeah, it can be yeah, it develops in from that first uh, fertile soil you're talking about with just two people in an interaction. It develops astronomically in different ways.
And then what happens is through television, you get to kind of, as a viewer, especially from movies, you get to, in a way, empathetically experience extreme injustice. Like where the hero's daughter gets kidnapped or killed, or this happens to the hero, and you're kind of living vicariously as you're watching the movie. You really like this guy, you like the character, and then something really bad happens to him, and now you get to experience a taste of extreme injustice on a small level. And that
Yeah,
kind of,
you're experiencing it
that's feeding
by proxy. Yeah.
that's feeding it, right? And then here's the big thing. In the past, the only way to hear about really intense injustice was through the newspaper. That's it. And you're sure as heck not going to hear about much in other countries when the print press first started.
Yeah, you're not going to hear about what's going on in Uganda
Yeah.
in 1788. I don't know when the first newspaper started, but I'm guessing it was roughly around the turn of the century, 16 or 1700s. Yeah.
And then when the television came out, now you had news, live news with cameras where you could see the injustice. But it's still like, okay, I'm going throughout my day. Okay, oh, it's 8 o'clock news time. And you go to your 8 o'clock news and you get your half hour of stories regarding injustice.
Your dirty laundry.
And then, time for ice cream and graham crackers, and then we're going to bed. Okay? Very simple.
Yeah.
But now we have social media.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the average is of screen time for a person a day. What do you think it is?
I know it's, well, I would
Let's
say
not even say screen time. Let's say like social media screen time.
social media engagement. I know for me it's probably at least an hour, at the very least. And I think that's a little bit compared to most people. I only get on social media at work before bed. If there's like a downtime at work and I can turn on my phone and flip through my news feed. So maybe an hour, but for most people, I've heard some teenagers spend up to like over 8 hours a day these days on social media.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess, completely get wild guess, that for full-time working people, 2 to 4 hours a day.
That sounds right.
For people who aren't working or part-time people that have a full day off, probably 4 to 6 hours. Average.
People that aren't working, it's probably more than that. Well, I would say average 6 at least. Because if you're not working, and unless you have an incredible social life, you're either watching TV, playing video games, or doing social media. Maybe if you're just a person that is antisocial, maybe you have some healthy hobbies. But I think it's a very rare person that is antisocial and has a productive life. Not to say that it doesn't exist. I think those people are far and few between.
So I think that it's a good idea to kind of target both the social media aspect of justice and dealing with that, and then also the personal. Because here's the thing. Some people that are on social media are not interested in what's going on in the world. They're not interested in hearing about it.
You can tell.
And the way that the algorithms are getting so good now is that whatever you're clicking and liking, it's saying, okay, this is what he wants to see. We're going to give him more of this. Now, there is the whole thing where Facebook was, the whistleblowers at Facebook were saying, hey, we're told to put in the opposite of what they would like. Because if we put in the opposite of what they like, they're going to get upset. And we find that when people are angry, they stay on the program longer.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that. I don't know how much of truth there is to that, but I know that what's going on with Twitter and TikTok is that they're putting things in front of you that you want to see. Facebook, do you do Facebook?
Every once in a while, if there's nothing good on my newsfeed, I'll see what people are posting about.
Okay, so in Facebook, are they doing that too? Do you kind of see like the stories coming up that are things that you're interested in, or is it just like the opposite of what you're interested in?
I would say so. About a year and a half ago, it was uncannily what I wanted to see, like uncanny how things that I might search on Google would show up on Facebook more than on Google, like even more. And I thought that was strange. Doesn't happen anymore. It's pretty random now on Facebook, at least.
Okay.
It's more just what your friends are posting about, as far as I can tell.
So there might be some people listening that are kind of like, I don't want to hear the news. I don't want to hear about what's going on in other countries. I don't want to hear about Ukraine. And the most of, like, just for examples, the most of your Facebook, Twitter, Rumble, whatever platforms you're using are kind of just going through the things that you like. Oh, like, here's this new movie review. Oh, here's a short on this TV show that I haven't seen that looked right. So in that scenario, it's not going to be so prevalent as far as this overbearing sense of injustice that I'm feeling all day long because of the news stories that are coming up that I scroll through all day that, you know, are triggering my my inner response, my justice response.
Right.
But for the people that are experiencing that, the people that are very involved in politics, the people that are very or interested in politics, the people that are very interested in world affairs, the people that are very interested in social affairs, there's many arguments about what's right. And for those people,
I think that's most people.
Most
right,
people.
at least today. Today it's most people. Most people are engrossed in affairs that are completely out of their scope of influence, meaning they can do nothing about it at all. They're not going to have any impact.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example. My oldest son, he was on, I think it was Facebook. He was watching a lot of Facebook and YouTube videos during one of the big riots from, gosh, I can't even remember where it was now, but it was one of the riots for a African American that had gotten
Police brutality victim.
Yeah, police brutality victim, and there was all these riots, and he didn't believe that the riots were justified, like what was happening in the riots, and he came over and he's like, I'm so upset. He's like, Dad, I can't even enjoy life right now. I'm so upset.
He's not alone.
Right. And
He's not alone.
I said to him, take a look around. Take a look around. There's nothing going wrong here where you're at right now. There's nothing impending on you that you need to react to in order to survive. Always look at things like that in perspective. There's an argument to that. There's an argument to that because some people might say, oh, you just don't care about it? Well, guess what? We're a society. We're all in a intertwined relationship. So for you not having an opinion about it and you not caring about it, you're actually harming everybody.
So there's a problem with that argument. And it ties into how our intrinsic sense of justice is being used. And people can say this is a conspiracy theory. I don't think it's that much of a conspiracy theory. I think it's pretty obvious. People who are in power are scrambling to see how they can get people to ally with them and have allegiance with them. That's how it's been like that for a long time. Shoot.
And that's not unbelievable because don't we do that on an individual level with each other?
Yes.
If the gossip gallery and wherever you work,
yeah,
aren't they doing that same thing?
Right, and that's why people embellish. That's why people embellish a little bit to make sure that they have the allegiance of the person they're talking to. They may leave a few things out. They may if I'm in a situation where I was uncool to someone and they were uncool to me and I came out on the short end and I'm upset about it, I might embellish to get support because I was in a situation where with another person where we were both doing things that were uncool and they got the upper hand. Now I'm upset, and so when I tell the story, I'm going to embellish to psychologically have you ally with me. That happens, on an individual level, so why wouldn't it happen? Not to say that it always happens, but it does. Even when I was in, I think, this was about 20 years ago when I was in college, and I was in a psychology class, and what my teacher was mentioning that if any of the students pursue a career in psychology, businesses will hire psychologists specifically to do that, to see how they can cycle, like, oh, you know about psychology, you know how the human brain works, help us figure out how to spin things in a way that gets people to gravitate towards us in any way we can, right? So there's this nature in us to have balance when there's injustice, and right now it's being used. It's being used in a big way, and that person that says, "Oh, you don't care," has committed to the idea of the collective consensus of whatever is being pushed. And if you don't agree with it, then I'm going to detract from your character.
Yeah, so it's obviously out there. A lot of people are suffering from it on a big level. The example I gave of my son where he's like, I can't even enjoy my life right now. I think that's the reason we're having this podcast. So there's so much on this issue, but I think there's several key points that need to be brought up in the mind when we're going to the source that is going to most likely present this sense of injustice to us. So here's one thing to try. Before you go onto your news feed, just shoot a little thought to yourself that says, all right, time to experience a little bit of injustice.
You take control of it instead of letting it take control of you.
Yes. Mm-hmm. You recognize that by choosing with your own free will to go on your news feed, you are also choosing to experience perhaps a sense of injustice or maybe justice if something happened that you liked, right?
Yeah, right. If someone got their just desserts.
Yeah. So you start with that. That way you know what you're getting into.
Right.
And then when you're reading your stories, you ask yourself, especially if you feel the injustice, you ask yourself, can I personally verify that this story is 100% accurate? Can I personally verify? Not does someone I trust
Believe that it's true or
believe
tell
it's
me.
true.
Yeah.
Because guess what? Everyone that I've ever trusted has lied to me. Not majorly. Maybe sometimes not even,
Embellishing is a lie.
Yeah. Everyone that I have ever trusted has lied to me. So even if I trust someone, everyone that I've ever trusted in my life has made human errors. So even if I trust someone, I still ask myself, can I verify this myself? And am I willing to put in the energy, if I can verify it, to do that? Does it matter that much to me that I'm going to actually make sure if this is true or not? Those are questions to ask, because when you kind of mold and bend your mind to accept that perhaps you don't have all the information about life or about a situation, you're less quick to judge. And when you're less quick to judge, the belief is not going to become solidified within you that can now, even if it's not true, pull just as much on your heart to want to right a wrong.
There's another aspect to what you're saying, and it's something that I think is healthy, but it's I think it's difficult for a lot of people to be able to, the idea to how does this affect me? And that may sound selfish, but it's an important question to ask. And the reason that you would ask it is because, I gotta say, the individual has an incredible amount of potential. An incredible amount. I believe that a lot of people don't have a lot of personal value. They don't value themselves all that much. And they see this big collective that does have a lot of power. And conscribing to it in their mind gives them more value than if they didn't. If I conscribe to the political left or the political right, well, either one, then I have more value than if I don't. And so I conscribe to whatever they believe is just or unjust, because then I can be a part of something bigger than myself. People don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. You can make your own judgments, personal judgments, based on personal verification, based on personal ethics, and still have support for either side. You don't have to fully invest yourself in everything that a collective group is doing. You don't. And that's part of, and to be able to say, well, I'm not going to do that is hard. I think hard for a lot of people, because then they have to look at themselves and say, no, I do have value. And some people, gosh, it's just, how do you get there? How do you get to if you don't feel like you have a lot of value, but you do if you conscribe to a collective entity that's bigger than yourself? How do you get to a point where you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, no, I'm worthwhile. I'm a worthwhile person, and I can make my own judgments, and I can, stand by my own beliefs, and still feel like I'm more valuable than if I didn't.
Well, for the people that are doing that, I believe the only way for them to actually feel value is based on how much they impact that group. So if they,
or just your own sphere of influence.
But if they're already deriving their value from the group, they're only going to get a sense of self-value by doing something within that group. So they can be like, well, look what I did in the group. Say I'm one of the most active people in the group.
Well, that's how they're doing it already.
Yeah. But as far as how do you get self-value, um, you have to be told that, dude. You have to be told and believe it. And this is why parenting is so important. Parents are the first people that are either going to instill that self-value or they're going to steal it.
You've seen plenty of that.
And a good example is that movie Good Will Hunting.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
Okay, well, he's the math genius,
Right.
that believes he's a piece of crap on the inside, and he puts on this big front to hide it, but inside, he doesn't feel that he's worth anything because, I can't remember the reason. His mother left him, or his dad left him, or something like that. He was abandoned, or something like that. And finally, Robin Williams, says, you are something. Basically, gives him the line where he's telling him, "You're valuable." Right? And he was crying and fighting because he didn't want to believe it.
Yes. So at first, when you first said that, I was like, I had a little bit of disagreement, but I do believe that is probably the catalyst. That's the ignition for the fire. The ignition is a person, especially growing up in society. We don't live in nature. We don't live solely by the laws of nature, solidarity, most people. So yeah, the ignition for the fire is being told.
And it's not just being told with the mouth. It's being told with how you're treated.
Right. Yeah. There's far more expression in body language and reaction than there is in verbal communication. But once you can trust the person, if they're being honest, if they're not giving you an over-the-top, if they're not giving you a participation trophy, and they're actually giving you valid credit for something that you've done, that is where it starts. Once you are able to take that and then make your own judgments based on what you've been instructed through validation of credit, then you can start doing things on your own and use what you've learned about what things that are valuable are and say, I've done this and it is valuable, not because I'm giving myself a participation trophy, but because I can see the results and I know that I did it. So I think you're right. It does start with being instructed of how your actions are valuable.
Yeah. So just to recap, first thing that you do is you recognize that you're making a choice to expose yourself to stories that are going to bring up a sense of injustice. So you go in knowing.
Right.
Second, you ask if you can verify the truth of this personally, because there is no sense. We already kind of talked about it. The reason of injustice is to fill the void, to right the wrong. There is no sense in going through any of that if you can't verify that it's true. Because then if you do actually try to right it, you're going to be expending a tremendous amount of energy. And if you find out that it's false, I think you gave an example about this, right? The guy that couldn't find something and was like, thought someone stole it.
Bad mouthing just totally trashing everyone lost, he thinks
right?
did it. Yeah.
So he believed something was true, even though he didn't have the evidence. He had absolutely no evidence.
He's going to go mess with these people. He's going to go mess them up because he thinks he believes that they stole his thing. Yeah.
That's the second part. The next one is that I verified that this is complete. I believe. Maybe you haven't verified it. and you shouldn't believe it, but you do anyways. I believe 100% this is true, and it is freaking messed up.
Mm-hmm.
Now here's the question to ask. Can you and will you do something about it?
Yeah, that's important.
Now, can you? That means, do you have the ability to do anything about it?
Mm-hmm.
And if you do, will you?
That's incredibly important, because if you don't, that sense of injustice remains, and people will they'll try to fill it in unhealthy ways. It'll just happen.
So, trying to give an example that's not too, like, politically hot, right? Okay, let's say the war in Ukraine. Okay, that's kind of hot, but it's not social, so it's not politically hot, right?
Whether people dying isn't in question. I think the reason it's hot is how are we reacting to it. So yeah, that's the injustice part.
So most of the people that are upset about the Ukraine war, there's two groups that are upset about the Ukraine war. One group believes every single thing that they have been told about the war.
From one side.
From our government side.
Well, what I mean is,
from what the government is telling the news and the news is telling us.
If you believe everything that Ukraine is saying, and you also believe everything that Russia is saying, there's going to be some conflict. So here in America, we're primarily believing everything we hear. Well, the one group is believing everything from the Ukrainian side.
Well, we're supporting the Ukrainian side.
Yeah.
So we're that narrative, the people that believe that narrative, and because they believe that narrative, they believe that we should be there.
Oh,
right?
Yes.
Okay.
In this group, even mentioning, have you thought about the war from Russia's side, is offensive. Even asking the question, have you thought about this war from Russia's point of view?
Yeah.
Just even hearing the question is offensive.
Yeah.
To that group. Yeah.
So, and then you have the other side that is like, this is the war machine. This is what we've been doing for the last 20 years, and all it is warmongering, right? Okay, so you have one group that is upset about the Russians and wanting to support the Ukraine, but now they're also upset about the unsympathetic people who aren't sympathetic to Ukraine. And they're like, Russia has the right to do what they did, right? They were going to join NATO and put missiles right next to Russia. If someone was going to put missiles next to us, we'd do the same damn thing, right? So the thing is that when you first go into that, well, first of all, when you go into your news feed, you have to recognize, this is going to be in my news feed, and I'm going to, hear about the dissenters, and I'm going to, get upset and blah, blah. Okay, here we go. You open it up. Is this true? Now, I know for sure that you, as a person sitting in your living room on your phone, cannot for yourself verify any of that. You are trusting. You are putting your faith.
You're putting your faith in in what you're hearing.
You're putting your faith into the government.
You're putting your faith into an organization that has an agenda, that wants you to conscribe to them, and benefits from you conscribing to them, and they have a lot more influence, money, and power than you. You're believing that.
So people who are not willing to say, it's reasonable for me to assume that they're telling the truth. It's reasonable to assume that the news is telling the truth.
I think it's a healthy standpoint.
Yes. People that are using that argument are going to pay for it with, well, they will pay for it unless they follow the third rule. They're going to, because once you say, I believe this is true, even if you don't have personal evidence, now it's a belief. And that's what injustice plays on, your beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So if they were to go to the third one and say, okay, wait, what can I do about it? What can I do about it? Can I protest?
Will
Right.
will that change Russia's mind if I protest?
Well, it might strengthen the U.S. if you go to the if you form a protest, go to the Capitol.
How can we? Yeah. So
More
if I
troops to Ukraine. More troops to Ukraine.
will it work?
Annihilate the Russians, right? Yeah, it'll have an effect because the energy's going out there.
Okay. So so the
Right.
question is, yeah.
Are you willing to do that?
Yeah. Are you willing to?
Are you willing to do that? Because if you're not willing to do that, then now you are just punishing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
By harboring that sense of injustice where you actually can do something about it,
But you
and
won't.
you're not. That might even bring in like some kind of subconscious self-hate at some point because you realize that you can't stand up for what you believe is right.
No, but then you just go around saying you're a positive person. you look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself that you're a hero and that you're the greatest ever.
So this third part is where I think we should transfer to taking this also to our little mini injustice experiences that we have all throughout
Right.
our life.
Once you say, okay, I don't.
So let's give an example. Give an example about someone doing something little that
Oh, you want me to?
yeah, that gives you an injustice, and then how you're going to deal with that third one, because you know it's, well, maybe you don't know if
Okay.
it's entirely true.
Okay. So at my work, and I think I'm okay to say this. I'm a nurse by trade. I don't think this is a HIPAA violation. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's not. But the fire department was called for they call it a false call when there's not an emergency, twice by the same person, and they were upset about it. And when
The person
the
or the
fire department was upset about it, right? So they came in and they were upset, and one of them, because they weren't going to take the person anywhere, they weren't going to do anything, and one of the nurses was like, "Can you just take her?" And the lead was like, "No," but no, he wasn't say it like that. He was like, "No," kind of like a joking way, and then I said, "Come on, why not? It's kind of a good idea." And then he actually got mad at me. So they were joking about the absurdity of the situation, and then when I chimed in, he was mad at me, and he reprimanded me a little bit. That wasn't just. There was a joke going on, and I get that we're joking about something that's uncomfortable, and so I'm trying to keep that sense of, yes, this is absurd, this is detracting from your actual mission, but we can try to make light of it to soothe the uncomfortability of what's happening. And he got very upset at me. And instead of saying, "Hey, you know what?" Because he was saying, "Oh, we're so," he was like, he got mad at me. One of the things he said is, "No, because if we take her," like I was serious or something. "If we take her, then some kid's gonna get hit by a car, and we're not gonna be able to respond." And at that moment, I was like, I get it. What I wanted to say is, you know what? If you're that concerned about a kid being hit, don't waste your time reprimanding me. Take care of what we have to do and leave. That would have been justice. You know, but am I willing to do that?
Yeah, exactly.
Am I willing to do
yes.
that? I was busy as well. If I had have done that, I would have been a hypocrite because I was swamped.
Yeah.
And no, I'm not willing to do that.
Yeah.
I have to take it real quick. Take
Yeah.
it on the what's the expression? Take it on the It's not take it on the face. Take it on the.
Take it with a grain of salt. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
So
anyway, and so then after that, because I'm not willing to do anything about it, I have to let it go. I have to let it go after that.
And how do you just let it go?
I don't know. You just have to let it go.
You have to accept it.
Yeah, you have to accept it. I have to accept that this is what happened. I wasn't willing to do anything about it. If I had have done anything about it, what would it have costed? It would have costed an uncomfortable situation around a lot of people. It would have made a spectacle of the situation. We probably would have wasted more time getting in an argument. No, I wasn't willing to do that.
And this is what happens when you go to number 3. Is there something I can do about it? And is there something I'm willing to do about it? So when we're choosing not to do something about it, usually the reason that we're not doing something about it, is because we're wanting to show mercy instead of justice.
Or the reward is not worth the work.
Yeah.
The reward is not, and people might say, oh, the reward of protesting isn't worth the work if you're not doing it. Yes, to you, and if you try to say, well, it is, and you're not doing it, it's actually not, because you're not doing it.
Yeah, and
you're lying to yourself.
And I think that with our personal relationships especially, but also relationships that affect our work, like coworkers and stuff like that, we need to choose mercy, and even if that requires forgiveness as well, in order to keep that relationship resentment free.
Mercy comes into play, and mercy is incredibly powerful. If you can choose mercy when the work would be worth the reward, and you have the power to bring justice, but you can show mercy instead, and the deficit isn't going to create a major problem in your life, and you decide to show mercy, it actually shows that you have the ability to choose. Because if you can't show mercy, then then the idea of justice is actually in control of you, and it turns into vengeance.
Yeah, and so just because you show mercy doesn't mean that in your mind you're going to be like, okay, this person very close to me wronged me. I'm not going to exact justice upon them. I love them. I'm going to show them mercy. That doesn't mean that all of a sudden the feeling of the injustice goes away.
It gives the ability for it to start to go away.
Yes, it gives the ability for it to start to go away because you're making a choice. So I think that in those situations, it's good to say it in your mind. This person wronged me. I'm choosing to show them mercy.
And
say it in your mind.
It's incredibly honest, or it's incredibly important for you to be honest with yourself, because you're going to get a lot of people that are just too cowardly to exact justice, and they'll lie to themselves and tell themselves that they're being merciful, that I'm not being a pushover. That won't even come into question. You know.
Yeah, that's a tricky one right there.
It's tricky, but if you're not aware of it, if you can't have that conversation with yourself, then it's probably maybe down the road in your development it will be.
I'll tell you one thing.
Yeah.
If this is something I've experienced personally, and I've experienced others experiencing the same thing, is that when you decide that you're going to choose mercy over justice because of love, your mind and your mind begins to try to kind of teach you how to deal with the emotional part because it's still there. Just saying, I'm showing them mercy isn't going to make, if you're feeling something in your solar plexus because of what happened, it's not just going to make it go away. Like you said, it'll help. But I think that when you start going down that road, what happens is it's just like where your focus is. Wherever your focus is, that's where you start finding things that kind of help what your goal is or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's going to happen different for everybody. Maybe it's a book you come across on how to deal with your emotions, or maybe it's just something you try randomly and it works, but you only were able to do it because you're able to say, I'm going to show mercy. And for me, what I do, and I don't know if this is something that everyone can do because I've done a lot of meditation and I think that that's helped.
Mm-hmm.
But I will completely quiet my mind, and I will say, any thought that comes in, I'm just letting you know right now, any thought that comes in, I'm going to acknowledge it and then I'm going to dismiss it. And what I'll do is I'll focus all of my attention on that feeling. And I'll just say, here you are. Stay as long as you need.
Mm.
And you'll see that it just, or for me, it just dissolves into nothing, like it never existed. It's been totally dealt with. It's been totally a loud audience.
It's dealt out, to even be more accurate, it's been satisfied. It's been satisfied.
Yeah, and it's kind of like when the angry customer comes to you and they're like, I can't believe this, blah blah. If you're like, you know what, I don't need to be talked to like that, shut up. It will do nothing for them. It will just make them angrier. But if you're like, oh, are you freaking serious? Well, of course you're pissed. Anybody would be pissed. I've seen it. I've seen them just, until all of a sudden we're talking about something that they enjoy.
So that's a very interesting interaction. That's probably one of the best examples of a situation in so far that we've talked about, because a lot's at play right there. If you do that and you stick to it and you don't bend, later on that day, you might mention there was a angry customer and you stood up to them, and you're not going to be upset about it. You're not going to feel like there was injustice. You're going to want to share how you're going to be proud of the way you stood up for yourself. You're going to tell your friends about it, and there's not going to be this sense of, oh, I was unjustly treated, and I'm upset about it now, because you serve justice right there in the moment. At the moment, you're good. You're proud of yourself. The other person, yeah, might not do anything for them unless they're a pushover, and they're like, oh shoot, I wasn't expecting this person to stand up to me. Which I would say happens about 30% of the time. Yeah, so there's a lot at play right there.
Yeah, but and that, I mean, you could look at that either way. See, because here's the thing. If you don't take anything personally, then you are not going to feel any injustice when that guy is yelling at you. Like when someone's yelling at me like that, what I'm saying, I don't even say it anymore, but what's going on in my mind is this guy's rudeness, anger, upsetness has nothing at all to do with me. And there's two people. There's one person that's going to be like, shut up, don't talk to me like that. And that's fine for them to do that. I'm not that guy. What I'm thinking is, how can I help this guy feel better?
So in my field,
because he just wants to express.
Yeah, in my field, I can't be like,
oh yeah.
If I do, even though they're being terrible, they'll call the state. and the state will automatically take their side and put me under investigation. So I have to handle it differently. You know what I do? I ignore that they're yelling, and I answer all their questions as if they're talking normally. Because a lot of the things you say when you're yelling, you wouldn't say in a normal tone. So it shows the absurdity of what they're actually saying by answering their questions as if they were talking normally. That usually gets them to kind of like that, because in fact, there's been times where someone's been yelling at me and asking a lot of questions, and some of them aren't questions. Like, do you even know this, or do you even know that? And I have to stop them and say, you know what? I'm going to write all your questions down because there's a lot coming at me. I'm going to answer them all in order. And all the do you even know questions, I answer them all in order. That usually gets them to back off and be civil right there.
Okay, so there's many different approaches to dealing with an angry voice.
That's
okay?
a diplomatic approach.
But when the voice is the emotion of injustice,
Right.
you have to listen.
Yeah, you do.
I guess you don't have to, but if you want to have it rectified and not come back during the process of letting it go, then you have to let it work out what it's going to do, and say, okay, this is uncomfortable, but I'm going to let it be here.
There are times when someone's yelling at, like, if there's an angry person at work or an angry family member at work, that is, taking their frustrations out of me. But there's two ways that I handle it, and they're both very different. There can be two people that are yelling and being abrasive. One doesn't bother me, one does. Because there's a certain person that is studying you off the bat to figure out how to make it personal to you. When someone's doing that, they're like, okay, you want this to be personal? Fine, it is. I'm pissed off. Okay, I see what you're doing. You don't have to waste any more of your time trying to make it personal. It's personal. You're calling me out personally. This isn't a shotgun blast that you do to everyone. It's personal, and I'm pissed off now. And there's the other person who is just belligerent and angry, and they're yelling, and they might look at you and yell, and then turn and look at someone else and yell, and you start to realize, yeah, this isn't personal. They're having an upset time. You're yelling at everyone. That stuff doesn't bother me at all. It bothers a lot of people. It doesn't bother me because I can see that they're just spewing out everything they can in every direction they can, and I might get hit by some of it, but they're not trying to see who they can get to laser focus everything on, because that's what a lot of people do, and that does bother me. It really gets to me.
I know, I've seen it happen.
Sure you have.
So those are the 4 things. I'll put them in the comments as well, so people can relook at it if they forget. The last thing that I wanted to say is, with the first scenario, you're going to a place where you know that you're going to experience stories and things that are going to trigger you and trigger that sense of injustice. Once you've gone through all the other steps, then you can do this. You can say, all right, I had my little 2 hours of going through my news feed, looking at all the crap in the world. The world's going to hell in a handbasket. I'm super pissed. I've worked through what if I can do anything about it, if I can't. Now it's time to box that up.
Put it on the shelf.
There should be no emotions in there left if you've done all the steps.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just box that up. I'm going to put that over here. Maybe I'll, get a little fix of it tomorrow. But for today, I'm going to put it there. And now I'm going to live my life.
Yeah.
I'm going to enjoy, going to the park. Or I'm going to enjoy sitting down and reading a book with my son. And that is there. And it's on the shelf. And it's not going anywhere. I'm not ignoring it. It's right there.
I think most of our listeners, even if you're a young adult, even if you're a late teenager, if you're 18, 19 years old, and you're having a lot of problems, enjoying your life because of this sense of injustice that's happening in the world, I think that anyone can go back through the annals of their life and go to times when they didn't feel that way, when they weren't caught up in the injustice. And boxing, saying, okay, I'm going to experience this and I'm going to put it away and live my life, it can allow you to have, maybe not relive the glory days, but at least create a new glory era for your life, that years down the road you can look back at the right now and say, those were the glory days also. I had some glory days before that, then I had another stretch of glory days where I wasn't caught up with everything, and I was actually taking my time to invest in things that are meaningful, whether it's relationships or hobbies or what.
And something just came to mind when you were saying that. All of us at some point in our life, or numerous points in our life, experience severe, extreme injustice. And for those things, maybe for others, definitely not for me, I have never, ever been able to let it go in one session of going through those steps. I've been able to let it go, but then what happens is, because I still hold the belief that something like that is wrong, what happens is the next day, or maybe even later the same day, first the thought comes about it, and after the thought comes about it, a replaying of the event comes.
God, yes.
And after the replaying,
I think most people know exactly what you're talking about.
During the replay is when that emotion of injustice comes. And guess what? When that happens, you know what I do? I stop the story. Just like I gave in the first example. I stop the story and I say, obviously you're not done talking yet. And I need to feel more of this. I need to feel it and let it dissolve again. And it'll get less and less and less and less over time. But to ignore it, unless you're going to act on it. Like for me, it wasn't something that I was willing to act on, because I started acting on it and I had a lot of support. Like everyone was supporting me, but I felt angry every second of every day, because in order to be successful in my retaliation or in my getting justice, I was going to have to follow one of the laws of achieving goals, which is become obsessed with it. I was going to have to constantly have it on my focus.
I think committed to it is a better word, because and maybe obsessed is a good word too, but in today's society, it's like obsessed is usually not a good word.
Yeah, obsessed.
But committed to it. You have to commit to it. You have to commit to the feelings. You have to commit to what it takes, and a lot of what it takes is going to be that anger, because that's going to be the fuel. Mm-hmm. I want to do this, but I don't want to use the fuel that it requires.
Well, there's a difficulty level for all goals, and the amount of commitment to that goal, because commitment is a spectrum. The amount of commitment to that goal is. Can
you give like a general?
A big goal?
No, of what you're talking about. Just you don't have to be specific, just a general overview. Okay. It doesn't even have to be like related. It could be an analogy.
Okay. So, let's say that I wanted to run for public office.
Okay.
That's the goal. My goal is to be elected, not to run. My goal is to be elected. That is possible. It is possible. And depending on my commitment level to that goal is whether or not I'm going to be successful. Now, you have a spectrum of commitment. So I could be committed where like daydreaming about it.
Right, but
I could be committed where I say I work 1 hour a day towards it.
Okay, and so like say in this goal, you're doing everything right. You're a good person. You actually you're a
Or you can be a bad person.
no, but you, because I'm trying to relate this to what you're talking about. And let's say you're a statesman, meaning you're not doing this for the money. You're doing it because you feel like you actually can contribute to a better society. And then, you get some people that are going to help you run, and they double cross you. Now there's injustice, and
Doesn't matter.
and you get support.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm
Yeah.
talking like what you were talking about, injustice and being angry, and how can you relate that?
Yeah,
to,
so
relate what you're talking about
Okay.
to a example. So running for politics, in an analogy.
Running for politics. Okay, yes, in an analogy. Okay.
To your situation.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't think I could really make an analogy in that way. But let's say that someone got you fired.
Okay.
Someone got you fired by lying.
And they were close to you.
And they were close to you.
Ooh, that makes it even more worse.
So, you're fired now. Let's say that in order to prove that you were falsely fired, you are going to have to do an extreme amount of work. You're going to have to meet with people, get testimonies, get them recorded. You're going to have to file a lawsuit, right? You're going to have to do all these things, okay? In that, your success of actually doing that is going to be equitable to the amount of commitment you have to it. So, like, let's say the next day, let's say you start, right? And the next day someone's like, hey, dude, don't even worry about that, man. I got a job where you're going to get paid twice as much. Ready to start?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Your commitment level just dropped to the point that you're not going to be able to do that for most people. Because they're going to be like, well, what's the point of me getting back at him when actually it was a good thing that I got fired because now I'm getting this better job?
And here's the thing. Once you might be excited, like, oh, I don't even care anymore. But after you're used to your new job, you're gonna revisit the injustice,
Yeah.
and you're gonna get upset about
Yeah.
it all over again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, for what I would have had to do, I would have needed an extreme level of commitment. Now, an extreme level commitment when achieving a goal of that nature requires an intense amount of planning, visualization, and action. And all of it was based on that sense of injustice. So anytime I was working on it,
You're
it was
angry.
that fuel was there. And I after a couple days, I stopped and I said, wait, this isn't me. I'm not the person that can thrive on anger.
You were taking on a spectrum of the human condition that is not natural to you.
Yeah.
So that
but there are a lot of people that thrive on it.
So that comes into this idea that destiny is for the lazy, and not to say that someone who isn't willing to do, like, I'm not willing to do what it takes to become the president, or at least get in the running. That doesn't mean I'm lazy. So, but my destiny, as it is right now, is not to become the president, And so you are functioning in an aspect of the human condition that isn't natural to you. In order to change destiny, you have to do that. The level at which you were going to need to function in that aspect was so tremendous that you're like, hey, I cannot sustain this because it's out of my nature. If I'm going to change destiny, the work, the functioning in this aspect where other people thrive is too much work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The point that I brought that up is because for those people that are going through these steps to work through the negativity and get back to the positive side, or the equilibrium, they might think that it's not working because they did it and then the next day thoughts come in, the story comes in, the emotion comes in, and they're like, well, it didn't work. It's not that it didn't work. It's that depending on how great the injustice is, the greater time it takes in order to
The more work,
rectify the deficit and the energy. And definitely if you choose not to make it right, If you make it right, then you might not deal with anything at all. But if you're choosing to not make it right,
then you have to.
Then there's that voice inside of you that's like, hey, you were taken advantage of. Protect yourself. Don't let people hurt you.
Yeah, and that's the motivation to want to seek justice right there.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, we want to thank you for being here.
I think we had some good stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed. Today's session.
That was a good talk, and we're always open to, if you guys want to reach out to us, you can email us or you can put it in the comments, and we'll get back to you, because that's what we're here for. We're here to just try to offer a different perspective that I don't hear very much
I don't hear it in normal conversation often at all.
And we want to get it out there. So if you could please like and subscribe to our channel, we'd appreciate it. And see you next time.
Take it easy, guys.
It's a good life, the life, the life, the life, life, the life, the life, life. Oh, it's a good life, the life, the life, the life, life, the life, the life, life. Oh, it's a good life, the life, the life, the life, life, the life, the life, life.